From HOA Compliance Committee. Subject: Violation Notice, Exterior Color Code Infraction. Dear Mr. Callahan, it has come to our attention that the front door of your residence at 732 Copper Pine Drive is painted a color not pre-approved by the board. The current color, a deep red, Pantone reference unknown, is in violation of our established palette. You are hereby ordered to repaint your front door to an approved neutral shade. Refer to page 47 of the HOA guidelines, within 10 business days to avoid fines. Failure to comply may result in daily penalties and legal escalation. I remember staring at that email like it was a joke. My name is Thomas Callahan, and at that moment, I was holding a paintbrush in one hand and my coffee in the other, standing outside admiring what I thought was a damn fine job. My new red door was bold, warm, and inviting. A tribute to my grandfather's old house in Vermont. But apparently, it was too red. Let me back up. I'd only moved into Copper Pine Estates 6 months ago. It was supposed to be peaceful, tree-lined streets, low crime, friendly neighbors. The kind of place where people wave from their driveways. What I didn't realize was that the real authority wasn't the police or the city. It was the homeowners association. And they had rules. So many rules. No visible trash cans. No satellite dishes. Grass no longer than 2 inches. House paint must be beige, taupe, or weathered almond. God help you if you chose the wrong shade of taupe. At first, I played along. Mowed the lawn obsessively. Hid the trash bins behind the fence like a criminal. But the door? That was personal. I'd spent 3 weekends sanding, priming, painting. That red wasn't just a color, it was a statement. The warning letter hit me like a slap. And what made it worse was the smug little digital signature at the bottom. Sincerely, Elena Stokely, Chairwoman, HOA Board. Everyone in Copper Pine knew Elena. Short platinum hair, permanent sunglasses, power walked the neighborhood at 6 a.m. with a clipboard in judgment in her step. She once fined my neighbor for having excessively joyful holiday lights. I'm not kidding. That night, I sat down at my laptop and fired off a polite response. Dear Ms. Stokely, thank you for your notice. I was unaware that the color fell outside the acceptable range, but respectfully, I believe the door adds character and complies with the overall aesthetic of the neighborhood. I kindly request that the board reconsider. I clicked send. Thought it was over. It wasn't. 3 days after I replied to Elena's email, a white Toyota Corolla pulled up in front of my house. A man stepped out in khakis, sunglasses, and a polo shirt with CPE compliance stitched over the heart. He carried a clipboard. Of course. He didn't knock. Didn't say a word. Just stood in my front yard and started taking pictures of my door from different angles, high, low, zoomed in. I opened the door and waved. Hey there. Can I help you? He lowered his camera like I was the one trespassing. HOA inspection, he said. Color evaluation. Color evaluation? Yes, sir. Your front door appears to be non-compliant. We're documenting the hue for committee review. I laughed. I shouldn't have, but I did. You guys brought out a color inspector for a door? He didn't answer. Just made a note on his clipboard, then held up a small plastic tool, a fan deck of paint swatches. He flipped through it until he found a page with colors like desert fawn, grainy beige, misty almond. Then he held it next to my door like it was some kind of sacred ritual. After a minute, he nodded, then scribbled something else down. I'll submit the report. Expect a notice by mail. He walked away without another word. That night, I got the second letter. This one was more aggressive. Subject: Second notice of noncompliance. This is your final warning. The door color, identified by inspection as Cabernet Crimson, is not an approved exterior color under HOA Code 7.4. You are in violation. Daily fines of $50 will be applied starting in 3 days. Failure to comply may result in legal action and forced correction at the homeowner's expense. I sat there reading it over and over, trying not to let my blood boil. My door wasn't hurting anyone. My neighbors hadn't complained. And yet, here I was, being harassed over a shade of red. My friend Malik, who lived 2 streets over, texted me when I vented in a group chat. "Bro, same thing happened with my porch swing. Said it was too rustic. HOA is nuts." That was the first moment I realized, maybe it wasn't just me. So I started digging. I pulled out the HOA guidelines binder they gave me when I moved in. It was 87 pages long, full of legal jargon, vague rules, and lots of subject to board approval phrases. On page 47, the list of acceptable colors was laughably narrow. And nowhere did it say red was prohibited. Just that any color not explicitly listed must be reviewed and approved prior to application. Okay. But nowhere did it say the board had to respond in a timely fashion, or even at all. Which meant they could just sit on your request and fine you anyway. I sent a second email. No response. Then a third. Nothing. Then, I found something strange. While comparing HOA documents, I noticed that the approved exterior color list in the digital PDF differed slightly from the one in my physical binder. 3 colors were missing. One of them? Cabernet Crimson. So I did what any sane, slightly angry homeowner would do. I went to the printer store, printed out both versions side by side, and highlighted the inconsistencies. Then I marched to the next HOA meeting. The monthly HOA meetings were held in the Copper Pine Community Room, a beige cube of a building next to the tennis courts. On the first Thursday of every month, a dozen board residents would show up, sip bad coffee, and pretend to care. This time, I wasn't pretending. I came in holding 2 binders. One, the original HOA rulebook I'd received when I moved in. The other, a freshly printed PDF downloaded from their website that morning. I took a seat in the second row and waited. Elena Stokely arrived precisely at 6 p.m., flanked by 2 other board members, Frank, treasurer, and Linda, secretary. They sat at a folding table like they were hosting a congressional hearing. She adjusted her reading glasses, shuffled papers, and said in her clipped voice, "We'll begin by reviewing outstanding violations. Mr. Callahan, I believe you're present?" I stood. "Yes. And I brought documentation I'd like to present." Elena didn't look up. "Mr. Callahan, your door remains in violation. A formal inspector has logged it as a non-compliant color. You've received 2 notices." "I know. That's why I'm here," I said, holding up the binders. "Because your own documentation contradicts itself." That got her attention. I walked forward and handed each board member a highlighted copy of the page showing the difference between the printed and digital versions. Elena squinted at it. Frank blinked. Linda frowned and whispered something to Elena. After a pause, Elena responded, carefully. "There may have been a recent update to the palette. You're still required to follow the current version." I stepped closer. "But when was that update made?" "There's no record, no timestamp, no board vote listed. If this was changed after I painted the door, you can't retroactively fine me." Murmurs stirred in the room. A woman in the back, I think her name was Carol, raised her hand. "Wait, so we don't get notified when the rules change?" "Changes are published online," Elena snapped. "It is the responsibility of residents to remain informed." I turned to face the room. "How many of you actually check the HOA site every week for silent updates?" Silence. Then a few heads shook. One guy snorted. Another voice, "I didn't even know we had a website." That's when it shifted. Elena looked flustered. Frank started flipping through the binder, comparing versions. Linda scribbled notes. "I moved to request a formal audit," I said. "To verify when changes were made, and if they were properly approved." Elena narrowed her eyes. "You don't have the authority to demand an audit." I do, I replied, as a dues-paying resident. Section 5.3 of your own charter allows for it if supported by 10% of the homeowners. More murmurs. Now people were pulling out their phones. Carol spoke again. I'll support it. I want to know what else got changed. Then someone else. Me too. And another. And another. Elena's face tightened like a fist. This meeting is adjourned. She stood and walked out. But the damage was done. The following Monday, I checked my mailbox and found a thick envelope from the HOA. It looked different. Heavier. More serious. Inside was a revised copy of the HOA Compliance Manual, printed in full color, freshly stapled. And tucked between pages 46 and 48, there was a single loose sheet labeled Amended Color Guidelines, Revision 3.2, enacted June 4th. That was 2 weeks after I painted the door. At the bottom was a suspiciously perfect signature. Elena Stokely, Chairwoman. It reeked of backdating. I flipped through my own original version. No such page. No mention of Revision 3.2. No vote logs. Nothing. I scanned the new one and sent copies to the few neighbors who'd spoken up after the meeting: Carol, Mrs. Fernandez from down the block, Malik. Within hours, Carol replied. Thomas, the copy I got doesn't have that insert at all. Same date. No amendment sheet. I blinked at the screen. They were sending out different versions of the same manual. That's when it hit me, they weren't just abusing the rules, they were rewriting them mid-game and feeding residents tailored versions to keep everyone confused. It was a con. A small, beige-colored, perfectly landscaped con. That week, I tried to get in touch with the HOA secretary, Linda. She'd been the only board member who didn't look completely hostile during the meeting. I called the number listed on the HOA portal. Disconnected. I emailed. No reply. Finally, I walked down to her house, just 5 doors down from mine. I knocked. No answer. But I saw the blinds twitch. I knocked again, gently. Then I heard footsteps. And a voice, thin, nervous. Please leave. I'm not supposed to talk to you. Linda? I asked. Pause. I'm sorry, she whispered. They said it could cost me my position. The door clicked shut. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something else, obsessed. I started printing flyers. Making timelines. Drawing out connections like I was in some suburban detective movie. Malik stopped by one night and found my dining table covered in notes. Dude, he said, you're going full tinfoil hat. Maybe, I said. But they're hiding something. He picked up one of the printouts. Wait. What's this? It was a copy of the HOA's annual budget from 2 years ago, next to this year's. There were inconsistencies. Big ones. Last year, the landscaping and maintenance line had jumped by $38,000. And the vendor? Stokely Property Services. Registered 2 towns over. Same last name. That's when I knew. It was a Wednesday night when I hit post. I'd spent the last 48 hours compiling everything. The 2 different HOA manuals. The missing color amendment. The $38,000 landscaping jump. The company registered under Elena's nephew's name. Screenshots of conflicting documents. My red front door, proud and defiant in the middle of all of it. I uploaded it all as a thread on Nextdoor, the neighborhood social app where people usually complain about barking dogs and recommend gutter cleaners. But that night, my post blew up. Within an hour. White heavy checkmark, dozens of likes. White heavy checkmark, neighbors commenting, this explains so much. White heavy checkmark, a few private messages, we've been suspicious for a while. Thank you. White heavy checkmark, and then. Police car light, one anonymous message. Be careful. You're messing with the wrong people. The next morning, a formal letter from the HOA was taped to my door. Mr. Callahan, your online activity has been noted and documented. Dissemination of misinformation about the HOA may result in legal action for defamation, slander, or violation of confidentiality agreements. Cease all public commentary immediately. They were scared. And when powerful people get scared, they get dangerous. But I wasn't alone anymore. Carol called me the same afternoon. Her voice trembled. They sent someone to my house. A man in a suit. He asked if I really signed your petition. Then he told me my garden statues were non-compliant. Said they could fine me unless I removed them. Same happened to Mrs. Fernandez. Then to Malik. HOA was retaliating, quietly, selectively. But that only made us louder. We formed a group chat. Then a private Facebook group. Copper Pine, Residents for Transparency. Within days, there were 40 members. By the end of the week, 137. We started sharing stories. One family fined for having overly colorful flowers. Another warned for installing a wheelchair ramp without aesthetic clearance. A veteran harassed over his flagpole. It wasn't about doors. It never was. It was about control. And the more we talked, the more one name came up, Elena Stokely. No one had ever seen her voted in. No one could recall when elections were last held. Most didn't even know how many board members we were supposed to have. So we dug deeper. And what we found made my blood run cold. The Copper Pine HOA charter stated that board elections were to be held every 2 years. That meant there should have been 3 elections since the HOA was formed. We couldn't find proof of a single one. No ballots. No minutes. No notices. We checked the HOA website. Nothing but generic meeting summaries, no actual votes recorded. No list of candidates. No tallies. I even went down to the county clerk's office to pull community meeting permits and filings. Nothing. Elena had been appointed, not elected. By a provisional vote back in 2016, according to one obscure filing. No one remembered it. The document wasn't signed by residents, only by Elena and one Robert P. Stokely. Her late husband. We had a dictator in yoga pants. I shared this discovery in the group chat. The reaction was instant. Malik. Okay, this just went full-on HOA coup. Carol. How do we get her out? Mrs. Fernandez. We need a real election. So we looked into it. Turns out, HOA bylaws allowed special elections if at least 25% of homeowners signed a request. We needed 54 signatures. We got them in 3 days. I went door to door with Malik and Carol, binder in hand. People were angry, but grateful. Some had been fined, harassed, or silenced. All of them were tired. We turned in the signatures officially and requested an emergency HOA meeting to hold the election. 2 days later, Elena responded. She refused. The board has determined that the request is invalid due to procedural errors and timing issues. The matter is closed. But it wasn't. Not even close. Because the group had grown, over 200 people now, and someone had an idea. Let's hold our own meeting. Not just online. In person. At the community center. Public. Open. Recorded. And so, on a sunny Saturday afternoon in August, we gathered. We called it the People's Meeting. Printed flyers. Social media posts. Word of mouth. Saturday. 2 p.m. Copper Pine Community Room. Topic: transparency, elections, and board legitimacy. I didn't know how many would actually show up. But by 1:45, the parking lot was full. Malik brought a speaker and microphone. Carol set up a folding table with voter sign-in sheets. I stood at the front, sweating like a man about to give a TED talk in hell. Then it started. Residents trickled in. Then streamed in. Young couples. Retirees. Veterans. Parents with strollers. Even a few who'd never spoken up before. We had well over 100 people in the room. I cleared my throat. Thank you all for being here. This meeting isn't just about a red door. It's about power, trust, and what happens when no one's watching the watchers. Applause. I presented the evidence again. This time out loud, with handouts. The rigged appointments. The vanishing votes. The landscaping scam. And then I asked the room, do you believe we deserve a real vote? A wave of raised hands. Then we passed around ballots, real, physical ballots. Do you support? White heavy checkmark holding new board elections. White heavy checkmark appointing an interim committee to oversee them. Votes dropped into a cardboard box. Carol counted them aloud. One by one. Nervous silence. Then, unanimous. Every single vote said yes. And that's when the doors slammed open. Elena walked in. Not alone. She brought 2 men in suits. They didn't speak. Didn't smile. Just stood behind her like bodyguards. Elena's voice sliced the air. This is not an authorized gathering. Anyone participating is in direct violation of HOA Code 4.6 and will be reported. Someone in the crowd laughed. I stepped forward. Elena, we've voted. We're holding new elections. You don't get to override the will of the community. She scoffed. You think this is a democracy? This is private governance. Then she made a mistake. She reached for the ballot box. To take it. And Malik, bless him, beat her to it. He picked it up, held it over his head, and shouted. You touch this box, and I swear I'll live stream the whole thing. Phones came out. Cameras pointed. The suits froze. Elena's hand hovered in the air. Then she turned. And walked out. 3 days after the meeting, I received a certified letter. From a law firm. Inside was a cease and desist. Mr. Callahan. You are hereby ordered to cease unauthorized gatherings, public accusations, and distribution of unverified claims regarding Copper Pine Estates HOA. Failure to comply may result in civil litigation and financial penalties. It was signed by Hathaway and Trent, attorneys at law. The letterhead was thick, expensive, and hollow. Because by then, the story was already spreading. A local journalist named Nina Park messaged me the same day. Hi Thomas. I live nearby. Saw your HOA thread. I'd like to talk, on or off the record. This kind of thing is more common than people realize. We met at a coffee shop. I handed her the binder. The documents. The flyers. The timeline. Nina's eyebrows kept rising with every page. This isn't just mismanagement, she said. This is organized fraud. The article dropped 2 days later. The HOA that lost control, inside Copper Pine's revolt. Photos of the people's meeting. Quotes from neighbors. Screenshots of fake amendments. A side-by-side of Elena's landscaping payouts. In the final sentence. Despite repeated requests, Chairwoman Stokely declined to comment. The community exploded. Even people who'd stayed quiet until then, retirees, golf dads, realtors, started emailing the board, demanding answers. HOA tried to fight back. They sent another letter, this time to every home, calling our meeting illegitimate, the article inflammatory, and reminding residents of their binding HOA obligations. But it didn't work. Because once people saw the truth, they couldn't unsee it. And now, no one was afraid. Linda, the secretary who once whispered through her door, showed up at my house. I quit, she said. Officially. I want to testify if needed. Carol received an anonymous envelope, full of old HOA receipts. Unfiled. Hidden. some of them with Elena's signature on reimbursement forms for events that never happened. Malik? He found that Stokely Property Services was registered under a fake address. The building was abandoned. The throne had cracked. And the Queen was losing ground. We knew that going public was just the first step. To take Elena down for good, we needed law on our side. Malik had a cousin, Danielle Nguyen, a sharp civil attorney who'd dealt with rogue HOAs before. She agreed to consult with us pro bono. Within days, we'd formed an interim legal committee. Linda, now fully resigned, provided insider documents, unfiled reports, old meeting minutes, even a burner email Elena used for off-record communications. Danielle drafted a formal legal challenge. Request for injunction. Petition to freeze HOA operations. Demand for a full independent audit. We submitted it to the county with 72 homeowners' signatures attached. 3 days later, we got a reply. Approved. The county court issued a temporary injunction. Right Arrow HOA could no longer issue fines. Right Arrow no new policy changes. Right Arrow all financial records to be turned over within 14 days. It was a direct hit. And Elena? Silent. No statements. No appearances. Her precious patrols stopped. Even her morning power walks disappeared. The group celebrated that night at Malik's house. Someone brought cake with "One door closer to justice" written in red icing. Carol raised a glass. To every fine they ever threatened. To every letter they ever sent. And to Thomas, whose red door started a revolution. I didn't cry. But I won't pretend I wasn't close. The next morning, I stood in front of that door, bright, defiant, unapologetically red, and smiled for the first time in weeks. Then I noticed something taped to the bottom of the doorframe. A handwritten note. I was one of them. I did what she said. I'm sorry. No name. No signature. Just 6 words scribbled on the back of a landscaping invoice. 2 weeks later, the court-appointed auditor released a report. It confirmed everything. Ballot box with check unauthorized budget amendments. Ballot box with check unapproved contracts with Stokely Property Services. Ballot box with check 0 legal records of board elections. Ballot box with check financial inconsistencies totaling over $92,000. The county issued an order of dissolution. Right Arrow the current HOA board was officially dissolved. Right Arrow all funds frozen. Right Arrow a new election overseen by an independent administrator. We had done it. The very next month, we held our first ever real election. No secret ballots. No forged signatures. Just clipboards, open voting, and community trust. Linda was elected treasurer. Malik, communications chair. And me? They voted me in as interim president. I didn't even campaign. I just stood up, smiled, and said, I promise you one thing. No one will ever be fined for their front door again. Applause. Laughter. Relief. Weeks passed. Quiet returned. No threats. No notices. Just barbecues, kids on bikes, and neighbors who waved instead of stared. I got a letter in the mail one day, from the county clerk's office. Copper Pine Estates HOA, original entity revoked. New entity filed, Copper Pine Neighborhood Council, non-profit, resident governed. We were free. One evening, I repainted the frame around my door. Not because I had to, but because I could. Bright red. Rich and loud and stubborn. Just like this community. Just like change.